Alright, so picking up with our second part of population genetics. Alright, so you should recall, alright, it's from the beginning of the term, we talked about different levels or organization of life, alright, and one of those was population. Alright, so recall that population is a group of individuals belonging to the same species that are capable of interbreeding and producing offspring. Okay, so here, that a population, alright, every single individual, alright, for our examples, are going to carry 2 copies of every single gene. Alright, so every single gene, you have 2 alleles. Alright, now within a population, you can have many alleles, alright, for a given gene. Okay, and all these alleles within the population represent what we call the gene pool. Okay, now, for example, we have 2 populations of caribou. Alright, so you have a population in the porcupine herd, and you have those that are part of the 40-mile herd. Alright, 2 separate, distinct populations. Alright, individuals in the porcupine herd are going to typically interbreed. Alright, individuals in the 40-mile herd are typically going to interbreed. And on some occasions, you'll have this, what we call a hybrid zone, where these individuals will interbreed between these 2 populations. Alright, so long as there's no physical or reproductive barrier, alright, these 2 groups of the same species can interbreed. Okay, but basically, population here, alright, all of the individuals in the population, alright, all the alleles for all the genes represent the gene pool. Alright, same thing for this 40-mile population. Alright, all the individuals in that population, all of their alleles for all their genes, that's the gene pool. Alright, so here are 2 equations you'll want to commit to memory. Alright, so they are the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium equations. Alright, so the first equation is for the allele frequencies. Okay, so for example, you have a dominant allele and you have a recessive allele. Alright, so here, P, that variable stands for the dominant allele. So for example, capital A. Q stands for the recessive allele. Alright, in this case, lowercase a. And within a population, alright, the sum of all the dominant alleles and the sum of all the recessive alleles adds up to 1. Okay? Now, what about the genotypic frequencies? Individuals that are homozygous dominant, heterozygous, homozygous recessive. Alright, well, P squared are individuals that are homozygous dominant. Alright, so keeping with our example, 2 uppercase letter A's. Individuals that are heterozygous, alright, 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase a, and individuals that are homozygous recessive, 2 lowercase a's. Alright, so the sum of p squared, 2pq, and q squared equals 1. Alright, so keep in mind that for an individual, for a single gene, alright, you have 2 copies, means gene. Alright, so how do you come about this genotypic frequency? Well, P plus Q squared. You FOIL it out, and you get this equation. Alright, so let's look at an example. Alright, you have flowers that exhibit incomplete dominance. Alright, so meaning that neither the red nor the white allele is dominant over the other. Okay? So here you have, within a population of flowers, you have 320 red, 160 pink, 20 white. Alright, so individuals with red flowers, alright, they have 2 copies of the red allele. Individuals with white flowers have 2 copies of the white allele. Individuals with pink flowers have copies of just 1 red, 1 white. Here, you actually have a reduced expression of the red allele, so that's why the flowers appear pink. Alright, so how about we go about calculating the number of copies of each of the alleles? Alright, so what about the red allele? Let's find that first. Alright, so how you go about doing that is individuals that are have 2 copies of the red allele. Alright, you have 320. Alright, red flowers. Alright, you have 2 copies of every red allele in all these individuals. Alright, so 320 times 2. Alright, plus individuals that are heterozygotes have 1 copy of the red, 1 copy of the white. Alright, they at least carry 1 copy of the red allele, so plus 160 gives you 800. Now, what about the white allele in the population? Alright, well, you have white flowers. Alright, to have white flowers, you have to have 2 copies of the white allele, so 20 times 2, plus all the pink flowers each carry 1 copy of the white, so plus 160, gives you 200. Alright, so now you gotta calculate the allele frequency. Alright, so here, P. Alright, we'll designate the red allele as P for this example. Alright, so 800 out of here, 800 plus 200 out of 1,000 gives you a frequency of 0.8, or 80%. Okay. Q, alright, frequency of the white allele, 200 divided by 1,000 gives you a frequency of 0.2, or 20%. Notice here that P plus Q equals 1. Alright, so 0.8 plus 0.2 equals 1. Alright, so we're good there. Alright, so for Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, alright, populations to be in equilibrium, or to not be evolving, alright, we're talking about sexually reproducing organisms that are diploid. Okay. Their allelic and their genotypic frequencies remain constant from one generation to the next, and to the next, and to the next. Alright, so again, we're looking at microevolution. We're looking at the change in allele frequencies over time. Alright, so here, looking at our our red and our white alleles. Alright, so 80% of the population, red alleles, 20% of the population, white alleles. Alright, these individuals produce gametes. Alright, so 80% chance for red, 20% chance for white. Alright, so what about the genotypic frequency? Alright, so you have P and you have Q. Alright, so the frequency of red flowers in the population is 0.8. Alright, so 0.8 squared, or P squared, is 0.64. Alright, so that's 64 For the pink flowers, 2PQ. 2 times 0.8 times 0.2 gives you 0.32, or 32%. And individuals with white flowers, Q squared. 0.2 squared gives you 0.04, gives you 4%. Alright, so here you can confirm this previous data by looking at cross between 2 pink flowers. Okay, 2 pink flowers, 80% red, 20% white allele. Alright, in terms of proportions. Alright, do the cross, you have 64%, alright, or 0.64 frequency of homozygous dominant, or P squared, red flowers. Alright, 0.32 or 32% pink, and 4% or 0.04 Q squared white flowers. Alright, the next generation, alright, that mates, alright, you have 64% chance for red allele, 4% chance for white allele, alright, plus 60% for the red, for the white. Alright, again, you can see 80% chance overall for the red allele in the population, 20% proportion of the population is white allele. Again, through random mating, alright, your frequencies stay the same. Alright, you get the same thing from one generation to the next. Alright, the allele frequencies and the population frequencies are staying the same. Alright, so you could say, because of this, that the population's not evolving. Now, there are some conditions that must be met for a population to not be evolving, or to be in equilibrium. Alright, they have to be of a very large population size. There has to be no migration into or out of that population. There has to be absolutely no mutations, alright, not even silent mutations. Alright, mating has to be purely random, and there's absolutely no natural selection. Alright, if any of these 5 conditions is violated, alright, the population is going to potentially evolve. Alright, so for a population to be in equilibrium, every single one of these 5 conditions has to be met. Alright, so let's look at a practice problem. Alright, so the frequency of tools in a population: 9% A, 10% little a. Alright, what's the frequency of the individuals that are heterozygous? Well, 90% is the same thing as 0.9, and 10% is the same thing as 0.1. Alright, so that gives us P and Q. Alright, so these are the alleles. This is the allelic frequency, 0.9 and 0.1. These are allelic frequencies. Okay? Alright, so to determine the frequency of heterozygous individuals, alright, recall that 2PQ is the part of the equation that represents heterozygous individuals. Well, all you do is 2 times 0.9 times 0.1. Okay, and that's going to give us 0.18. Or here, 18%. But individuals that are homozygous dominant, well, P squared. Alright, P squared represents the individuals in the population that are homozygous dominant. So here, 0.9 squared gives you 0.81, or 81%. And individuals that are homozygous recessive, Q squared. Q squared equals 0.1 squared, which equals 0.01, which equals 1%. Alright, you add 18% A1 and 1%, you get 100%. Okay. Alright, so a population is in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Alright, the frequency of homozygous recessive genotype 0.09 is 0.09. What is the frequency of individuals that are homozygous for the dominant allele? Alright, so we're being asked to find P squared. Alright, so always start with what you know and what you're being asked for. Alright, so we're being asked to find P squared, and we're told the frequency of homozygous recessive genotypes, which we know is Q squared, 0.09. Well, how do we go from being given Q squared to finding P squared? Alright, well, this is where the equations come in. Okay, so P squared plus 2pq equals Q squared, plus Q squared equals 1, and P plus Q equals 1. Well, how do you go from Q squared to Q? Alright, well, to do that, you go from Q squared to Q, all you do is take the square root of Q squared, and that gives you Q. Alright, so here we can take the square root of 0.09, alright, and Q will then equal 0.3. Alright, well, now we have Q. We know P plus Q equals 1. So now 1 minus 0.3 equals 0.7. Alright, and that is P. Well, how do we get P squared? Well, all you do is take P, which is the allele frequency of the dominant allele, and square it. Alright, so to go to P squared, alright, all we're going to do is take 0.7 and square it, and we get 0.49. Alright, so 0.49, or 49% of the population, is homozygous dominant. Now, the fact that you have these equations, alright, you don't have to sit here and hunt and peck and find. Once you have some of these variables filled in, all you gotta do is plug and chug to find the rest. Alright, so what if I asked you to find individuals that are heterozygous, or 2pq? Well, you could do one of two things. Alright, you can take 2 times 0.7 times 0.3, alright, and you would get 0.42. Okay, or one of the other things you can do, you know that Q squared equals 0.09. You know that P squared equals 0.49. You know that P squared plus 2pq plus q squared equals 1. Well, you have 0.49. Alright, you have 0.09, and you're looking for this. So all you do is just move everything over to the right side of the equation, and you're left with TPQ. Alright, so then all you do is subtract 1 minus 0.49 minus 0.09, and you're left with 0.4242pq. Alright, so there's many ways of coming about finding the answer.